I'm Lawrence Daly from Your Empire in Melbourne and Folio Property Advisors, and I'd like to welcome Chris Gray from Your Empire's agents in Sydney and Zoran Solano from Your Empire in Brisbane and Hotbot Property Buyers Agents. Thanks for joining in and having a chat to us today about what we've been seeing in the market over the last month. I'll shoot it over to you, Chris. What's happening up in Sydney?
Well, I thought I'd jump on the core logic numbers. They're always a good thing to look at every time. And in Sydney, we've got 0.3 positive for the month, 0.9 for the quarter, and 9.6 annually. Melbourne, 0% for the month, minus 0.2 for the quarter, but 3.2 positive for the annual. And Brisbane, we've got 1.1 for the month, 3 for the quarter, and 15.9 annually. And similar stuff around Australia. I think the annual is 8.8. And so, like a lot of the media is saying is, look, on $1 million property, it's effectively gone up $90,000 or $100,000 for those that did take action in the last 12 months or so. And that's the message that we've always been sharing for years and years between all of us. And I mean, we've known each other for maybe 10, 15 years, Lauren. And that thing is years and years ago, we were buying at 3, 4, 5, 600,000. Now investments are kind of 1 to 2 million pretty much around the country. And it's not getting any worse.
Yeah, indeed. Zoran, how about you? What are you seeing? What's been the trend over the last month or so?
We've definitely seen that growth statistic in full force here on the ground, especially around our median house price. So that's sort of 800 to $1 million there or thereabouts. We're seeing consistent growth, circa that 1.5%. And I'm coming across a lot of buyers who've been in the market now for 2 or 3 months, constantly missing out. And I'm reminding them, guys, when you're looking at historical data, you need to factor in these kind of growth trends to calculate the value of where you put an offer in. You can't be 1 or 2% below the market month after month because you'll just never get anything. You need to step ahead of the market to secure good property.
So actually that brings to the question, is there such a thing as a bargain in today's market?
That's the thing.
It's sure.
It sets us, well, the amount of clients that we've got on that have been on for 3 or 6 months, they're constantly trying to chase it. And we're saying 6 months on, you're not going to be able to afford a 3-bedder. You'll be back to a 2-bedder, or you're going to be a kilometre from the beach instead of 500. So it's trying to get that reality. That's a hard thing to get across to clients.
Yeah.
There are definitely opportunities in this market. Just last week, I purchased a property under the hammer at auction. Now, look, a lot of people look at buyers agents and have this opinion. I know, Chris, you guys like to avoid auctions in the Sydney market, but here in Brisbane, it's like sending a professional sports person into an amateur league when you send me to an auction, right? And so we were able to secure a property for around $50,000 to $100,000 below the automated valuation range for that particular property, and having the confidence to bid and interact under the hammer. So yes, there are definitely opportunities still out there if you're willing to put some skin in the game.
Okay. And so we've got a few things happening at the moment. I mean, in Melbourne, you can look at the market, and obviously we're looking, we're the poor cousins to everyone right now. But if we look at statistically what's going on, we've got a huge amount of immigration. We've outstripped Sydney in terms of numbers, but most of the people that are coming are immigrants internationally, and they're therefore putting pressure on the rental market, not necessarily the housing market. And interestingly, with our good old COVID tax and the increase in land taxes, a lot of our investors have sold up their properties. So we're about to face something that I don't think we'll face ever again in our sort of buying lifetime, where we are simply not going to have the supply of homes that are available for people who are looking to rent homes. Investors, up to 13 interest rate rises and up to these huge land tax bills that we're being hit, and the highest rate of stamp duties, it's not really making it what you would call an appealing market to buy into. Interestingly, though, we are getting some cashed up people looking to buy into the investment property market, which we haven't seen for some time. So it's one of those things that I always say, there is always people that have got money, and there are always people who are willing to take a jump at a time where others are not. So although I think it's not going to have that huge impact on the supply issue, it will eventually see housing prices go up. It's just a natural flow on that we're going to have. Also, if we look at the numbers, if you look at the greater numbers, we've still gone up in value, but there are also insular suburbs, homes and properties that have outstripped and outperformed consistently, whether it's in the home buying market or the investment space. So I think that one of the things that is becoming increasingly frustrating for me is that if we look at the kind of talk that they're having in the media, and housing prices in Melbourne are falling. It's just not the case. Now, if you follow that information, you are going to be grossly affected by it. You won't buy in. You're going to wait until there's this bottom that hasn't actually hit, because the good homes are still performing. That's the data that they're not talking about on the news, which, I personally find forever frustrating. Let's have a chat about end of financial year. What do you think, Zoran, is the right thing to be doing right now as we heading towards the 30th of June?
Yeah, I think that people need to actually remember there's only one quarter to go in this financial year. I would definitely suggest to clients to start interacting early with their accountant and have some discussions, have proactive discussions. Don't wait for the financial year to tick over only to realize, oh, geez, I should have co-contributed to super, or I should have done some repairs and maintenance so it falls into that financial year for tax. Start thinking about these things now. There are some really great opportunities, obviously, to enhance the value of your property, the rentability of your property if you want to spend some money on that, or investment properties, and obviously reap the benefits of some tax benefit as well. So, also if you're thinking about realizing a capital gain or a capital loss, think about those sort of things. Maybe it's next financial year you might find yourself, taking a hiatus from work for 12 months and not earning an income. Maybe that's the year to sell a property if you're that way inclined. But I wouldn't be, I wouldn't be. But hey, it depends on your strategy.
What about you, Chris? Any thoughts on what people should be doing as they prepare for the end of the financial year?
Sure. And look, as a group of buyers agents, we've always been contrarian and quite often doing the opposite to what the media says or what the average person says. And typically, most people will go to their accountant, say, minimize my tax, I want as much refund as possible. They then later on go to their mortgage broker or direct to the bank and realize they can't borrow any money. So as contrarians or as property investors, we do the exact opposite. I'll be going direct to a mortgage broker rather than the bank, because the mortgage broker looks after me, whereas the bank looks after themselves. And I'll be saying to the mortgage broker, how much money do I need to earn in order to refinance, or in order to pull out some money to act as a buffer or to act as a deposit? And then I'll be going to the accountant to say, ideally, I want to be earning this kind of money. And so again, that's where you decide whether you can do the repairs and maintenance this year, or you push it into the 1st of July, whether you do get off your backside if you're self-employed, make some more sales, or if you work for an employer and then you do something better to go and get your bonus, or whether you cut out your Uber Eats, taking your dog to the wherever you take the dog to get it pruned and pedicured, and maybe even cancel the gym membership and go for a run instead to reduce your expenses. This is the time to do the planning, and the mortgage broker is the most important person, but not just any mortgage broker, a mortgage broker that's used to dealing with property investors all the time.
Yeah, I think that there's a really good point there, though, Chris, that you bring up. It's actually about getting solid advice. To speak to your accountant about what you can do in relation to tax. Speak to your mortgage broker about how you're going to refinance. Go to the professionals in those specific fields that are going to actually help you make an overall really well-sounded investment decision. A lot of people go out and they do part of it. They might speak to their broker, but their broker doesn't know what properties they're holding, so they're refinancing the wrong assets. They're talking about tax, but they're getting it from someone who's perhaps an uncle or an aunt, and not actually a tax professional. You've got to speak to a buyer's agent when it comes to finding out whether you've got the right assets. I always think that this time of year is a really great time for clients to look at their overall portfolio. Are they holding on to the right assets? Should they be liquidating something because they could better invest in something else? Have they fully capitalized the home that they've got or the investment property that they've got? Or are they in a position to continue to build? So those sorts of things, it's time for thinking and time for planning. Before we sort of wrap it up, I'd love to know if anyone's got any good ideas or any predictions. Everyone likes to know about predictions. What are we thinking might happen as we head towards the second half of this calendar year? Zoran?
Yeah, I think we're going to see an additional supply of properties to the market here in Brisbane as owners realise the effects of their interest rate rises they may have received in the last 12 months. I think that people are probably starting to wear through their cash reserves a little bit, and especially if investors had leveraged themselves quite significantly over the last 3 to 4 years, we might see some opportunistic buying starting to occur, but there's enough buyers out there to still capitalize. I think our rental market is going to increase. Rental yields will improve here in Brisbane. And I think investors specifically are very, very well positioned to buy competitively as sellers try and sell tenanted investment properties, therefore alienating the home buyer from purchasing that property. Investors are going to have a really strong buying position heading into the rest of this year.
Chris, how are you seeing things looking at the second half of this year?
And I actually got a new crystal ball for Easter, and I can actually guarantee that one of three things is going to happen. Either the market's going to go up, or it's going to go flat, or it's going to go down, and I'll guarantee one of those things happen. Obviously, if the property market goes up, that means you should buy today because property is going to be more expensive tomorrow. Now, obviously, for the majority of people, they think if it's going flat or going down, then I'll wait and it'll be cheaper tomorrow. But the downside is the chances are interest rates are going to start going down at some point over the next kind of 6 to 9 months or so. When that happens, everyone's serviceability will increase. And so all those frustrated buyers that haven't been able to buy over the last few years because they haven't been able to service a loan will then start being able to afford a loan, which will mean more people will enter the market, the demand goes up, there is no more supply of property in the good areas, and prices will continue to rise again. So don't make the mistake that you probably did in COVID to say, I won't buy now because it's going to be cheaper tomorrow. Suddenly the whole herd mentality came in, and in 2021, it went up 20 or 30%. So that's why the golden rule that we've always said is if you can get a loan today and you've got enough deposits and you've got enough money to hold on, now is the time to buy.
Yeah, it might sound boring, but geez, it makes people some money.
Look, I couldn't agree more. I think that one of I think that rates are sure to come down towards the second half of this year. We've still got a massive supply issue in Melbourne. So whether you're looking at investment grade properties or homes, last year we were down 40%. This year we're still sitting down 25%. People don't move if they don't have visibility about what else they can move into. So as soon as we get an interest rate reduction, it's going to stimulate that marketplace, and people will have confidence again about putting their homes on the market, as there'll be visibility of other things that they can move into. And we will have the same old thing that always happens. The droves of people will start following one another rather than leading by the way. So I think it'll be a busy end to the year because people are a bit pent up, particularly in the Melbourne market, without having that ability to move into other properties. So it should keep us all on our toes. Well, thanks for listening for another month. We'll be back with you next month to tell you what's been happening. And there's always something on the horizon. Chris.gray from Your Empire in Sydney, and Zoran Solano from Your Empire in Brisbane and Your Hot Property Buyers, and myself, Lauren Staley from Infolio in Melbourne and Your Empire. Thanks for having us.
There you guys.